Today's lesson is on simple composites. So we are going to start with an image with a white background, add a custom drop shadow and a gradient to add a little more of a 3D effect. So you can see this can be done with people images as well as inanimate objects. So let's go ahead and get started. The first step is to start with an image with a white background. So capturing this type of image, you want to make sure you have good light on your background. That way you have the great contrast. And so if you have an off-camera flash, that's a great solution to bounce it against the wall in the background and then have some nice light source on the front of your subject as well. Or maybe you can add a whiteboard. If you do not have a clean white background, it's going to take a lot more time to do your selection and to remove that background. So since I have a nice clean white background, I have several selection tools that will work for me. I can do the object selection tool. I can choose quick selection, but in this case, because my white background is so perfectly white, I'm going to choose the magic wand tool. With the magic wand, I just do a single click. Notice it has selected my background. So I can do one of two things. I can right click to select inverse and then layer via copy. Or I'm going to go back to the background layer, click again with my magic wand tool. If this background layer were not locked, so I can just tap the little lock feature to unlock it. Now I can actually, because the background is selected, I could choose the delete key on my keyboard. And I've just removed the entire background. So either option, what you want to do is isolate your subject, your object, onto a separate layer with no background. So I'm going to remove my marching ants, Command or Control D. And I'm ready to get going with a gradient layer. I'm just going to turn off this extra layer since we don't really need it. All right, adding a gradient layer, I'm going to add a new blank layer and then come over here and find my gradient tool. Once I look at the tool, I have several options up above that I can modify the tool, both by color as well as by design. So if I want a traditional linear gradient, just click and drag. If I want to make it more spread out, I can click and drag beyond the sheet, the canvas. I can also do small little ones if I want defined lines. If I change to more of the radial gradient, I'll get some nice circle effects in here or some other fun effects as well. So the choice is yours, any kind of gradient that you want to use. I'm going to go back to a traditional gradient and I'm just going to change to more of a blue background on this particular case. All right, when it comes to the gradient tool, other things to just make sure, sometimes your mouse, you will end up toggling by accident the mode. And if you change it off of normal, you will have a different effect. Same with if your opacity is not at 100%, it will look different than what you see on my screen. So something to keep in mind. All right, I do want my dinosaur to be on top of my gradient level or gradient layer. So I'm just going to drag the gradient down below. For good file maintenance, I'm going to go ahead and rename my layers because as I get larger and larger files, that becomes an issue. So I want to practice good process in Photoshop. Okay, now we're ready for the custom drop shadow. It's so easy, it's ridiculous. I'm going to add a new blank layer. And notice that one's called layer 2. I'm just going to go ahead and rename it as shadow. And that layer is active, but I want to get the selection matching my dinosaur here. So if I hold down Command or Control and click on the thumbnail of the dinosaur, I get my marching ants. So that has just recalled a selection basically because of clicking on that thumbnail with the Command or Control. Now with the shadow layer active, I can switch over to my paint bucket tool. If your paint bucket tool does not show up on your toolbar, you can click on the 3 ellipses and see additional tools. And with a black color in the foreground, I'm just going to click. So I have a shadow now. Get rid of my marching ants, Command or Control D. I just want the shadow behind the dinosaur. So I'm going to drag it to a layer beneath. And with my move tool, I'm going to just separate the two subjects. So now there's a little bit of fine tuning here. I'm going to go ahead and resize my dinosaur, just make it a little bit smaller. I'm holding down the Shift key so I can lock that ratio as well. Kind of want to line up the feet a little bit with the shadow. Now I'm ready to fine tune the shadow. So most shadows would not be the same hard edged. So I want to soften the edge using the Gaussian blur filter. So selecting my shadow layer, choose the filter drop down, filter blur, and Gaussian blur. And depending on what your effect is, you can drag your sliders for the radius to see if a harder edge or a softer edge. I still want to see some definition of the dinosaur. So I think I'm going to stick with about this % right here, or this size pixel. Go ahead and hit OK. And now I just need to soften the shadow. It's still a little bit too dark. So I can, within this one layer, if I look at my layers palette, there is an option here called opacity. So I can either drop down and drag my slider back and forth, or Photoshop has this cool thing called scrubby sliders. If I take my mouse over the word opacity, it automatically changes into a hand with two double-sided triangles. And if I click on the word opacity, it allows me to drag down or drag up to change that opacity number. So it's just a little faster way of going about it. So let's say I like about a 70% opacity, pretty close, 69%. And now I have made a custom shadow. I could take it one step further if I really wanted the shadow to be off to the far right. So I could, with the shadow layer selected, I could use my transform tool, Control T to transform. I could choose the skew option and do some different things that way. So options are limitless. This is how you create a shadow, a custom shadow from a particular object, as well as adding a gradient layer. Have fun.